talking with the experts.
Listener Jen Nash tells incredible stories in episode 276.
Yeah, but I think actually the best stories in the world are the ones that are not perfect at all. And I think I think the best stories start with disaster. Like one of my best, it's like the best worst travel story ever is I was in Italy and I was in Bologna and I had this beautiful lunch. And I was like, well, there's this type of meat that I'd heard. I'm blanking on the name, but there's this type of meat. And I was like, oh, we should definitely go try this. And it's got a fancy name. And I didn't realize that my watch had actually stopped working. We had a flight in a couple hours. So we went and we tried this fancy meat, which turned out to be bologna. Swear to God.
Really?
Bologna is from, mortadella. So mortadella is the fancy name for fancy bologna. And I was like, oh gosh. And while we were eating the bologna, I ran into this woman who I guessed correctly that her name was Jennifer. What are the odds? And Jennifer was like, you have to go and have this gelato. By then my partner was like, I think we need to go. And I was like, oh, we've got time. We'll jump a bus. It'll be fine. It was not fine.
Are you a non-techie, introverted author, speaker, coach, consultant, or entrepreneur wanting to make an impact through podcasting? In 30 days working one-on-one with you, I can show you how to build authority and credibility for your business. I'm inviting you to shift your thoughts about podcasting and allow yourself to expand into the next level of your life and business by joining the Podcast Wizard 30-day program as I help you take your podcast from idea to launch. Find it at rose-davidson.com under the Work With Me tab.
Welcome to Talking with the Experts. This is where we discuss great ideas to take your business to the next level. How do we know these ideas work? Well, it's because we're talking with business owners who are using these ideas. Business owners who have years of experience and expertise. All things business by business owners for business owners. And now, here is your host, Rose Davidson.
Hello and welcome to Talking with the Experts. I'm your host, Rose Davidson from rosedavidson.com. Talking with the Experts is about all things business by business owners for business owners, and you can find it on all good podcasting streaming platforms and on YouTube. Now, can you tell a story? I'm not very good at it. I can tell stories, but I can't write them. I don't know why that is. My next guest, Jen Nash, is going to be discussing powerful storytelling and how to nail every presentation and sell more, upsell, and connect better with your audience. Now, Jen is a connector in chief and helps people add more meaning to their lives through connection. She is a master facilitator, author, sought-after executive coach, and corporate speaker. And today she's going to talk to us about the importance of masterful storytelling, a topic that's very near and dear to her heart. Hey, Jen, and welcome.
Hi, Rose. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you very much. Now, what's the importance of master storytelling?
Well, there's this thing in boredom in life, and it's just a terrible thing to spend any time in. So I encourage people to be powerful. Like, if you want to get someone's attention, how do you do it? You connect with them. And one of the fastest, easiest ways to connect with someone is to tell them a story. Like, we've had this since we were little. I mean, I'm not sure about you, but I'm pretty sure you probably got a bedtime story or two at some time, right? And I think that when we connect to that place where we dream and we see visions and we actually get to go through something that someone's inspiring us with, I think it shifts us. It shifts us powerfully. And maybe that's shifting to sales. Maybe that's building a relationship. Maybe that's closing a deal. Or maybe it's just getting to know the person next to you on your plane ride, and who knows where things will go. I think it's really powerful.
Yeah, storytelling is quite good, and you're meant to use it in your marketing. But how do you use a story in marketing? I mean, to me, I'm very logical and I just, lay the steps out, but trying to tell a story for me is difficult. So how does one tell the story and get over the fear of telling the story?
Okay, well, those are two very different questions. How does one tell a story and how does one get over the fear of telling the story? But I'm going to answer them both. So telling a story, one of the easiest ways to jump into a story is to ask yourself, which of the 5 major archetypes is this story? Because once you know which archetype your story is, then you have a beginning, a middle, and an end. You have a beautiful story arc. They don't call romantic comedies like, trite for a reason. There's a beginning, somebody meets somebody, something doesn't go that well, somebody doesn't like somebody, but then somehow in the end they reconnect and oh voila, beautiful finish line, right? So that is, a love story. But then we also have, a revenge story, which in business, for instance, is they released a new product. Oh no, they're stealing our customers. Oh no, we're going to step in, we're going to take it back. We're going to vanquish them. So, again, there's a beautiful story arc there, right? And that's a revenge story. And then you have stranger in a strange land, search for the Holy Grail. And then of course, everybody loves a good rags to riches. Every crypto story you've ever heard is, oh, he bought, $5,000 worth of Bitcoin and now he's living in Guam. So perfect rags to riches. And how does that help you? How does knowing that help you? When you're writing a presentation deck, if you have a story arc, all of a sudden your deck becomes much easier to write because you have an understanding of where you are, what's happened, where you're going, and the points you want to make along the way. So for instance, with, a pharmaceutical drug launch, is it a love story? Are you changing the way the market sees your category? Are you changing how they interact with themselves? Like what's the wow, right? And then of course, fill in the data, tell them why this person, air quotes around person because it's a product, is the love of their life. It does this, 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 and this. Wow. Right. And then of course we have the down in the moment. Oh no, the love story is not perfect. These are the problems in the market. These are the problems in the category. And then wait, these are how we circumnavigate all those problems, finale in the end. So does that sort of help you understand how, really understanding powerful story archetypes can help someone pinpoint? Yeah. Okay.
Explained really well. Thank you.
So you asked, how do we tell them when we're uncomfortable? So in my course, I actually get people to understand neuro-linguistic programming, or NLP. And it's an interesting thing, which some people have heard of this. So I'm just going to ask, have you heard of a power stance?
Yes.
Okay. Do you happen to remember what it was?
Oh, it's just like hands on hips and chest out and chin up.
Love it. Brilliant. Okay. Do you remember why people thought that was helpful or supportive?
Because it makes you look bigger, makes you look more confident.
Okay. I don't see any reason why that wouldn't be true. But I think from an NPL standpoint, what you want to do is when you're feeling awkward or you're feeling off or you've got nerves, and remember, 41% of the world would rather die than speak in public, right? So you want to lock into your neurobiology a feeling of confidence, calm, and power. And so when you take, that Wonder Woman, that Superman stance, when you put your hands on your hips, when you make balls with your fists and you just dig them in and you put your shoulders back and you stand up, there's a way to actually lock that feeling into your neurobiology and to program it. You literally tap something on your hand and you program that feeling into your biology so that then when you're in that moment, in that meeting, about to have that talk and you're sweating and you're not feeling good, you can actually hit that point and your body will remember, the calm, the confidence that you have from that superhuman stance. And it will literally flood through you and give you that sense of, oh my gosh, I've got this. Does that seem like something that would resonate?
Yeah, that makes sense. Perfect sense. Yes. It does. But how do you get over the logic, like being so logical and being more fantastical or fantastical?
What do you mean?
Well, in your writing, say, you're writing a bit of sales copy, and you need to tell a story, whether it's one of those archetypes or that, But if you're not used to writing like that, then because I come from a law enforcement background, and so everything's got to be, really concise and so
I don't, you're not actually using the words love story. You're using the story archetype to create your doc. So for instance, what a love story is, right? The character comes on, the world falls in love with the character is amazing. So if you were writing a deck, you don't actually say the product comes on, the product's a love story. You don't say that.
No.
It's about how you present that product or that item, whatever it is that you're pushing in. If it's a love story, right? You're gonna say amazing things about it, and then you're gonna say how it meets the needs, right? Because that's, in the love story, obviously those two come together, their needs are met, they're feeling fulfilled. It's a metaphor. Absolutely, you would not put that into your law enforcement deck.
No, that's what I mean. So I'm trying to, so how do you make it so it's not so concise, but make it so it's more engaging for your audience to read? Because, obviously a legal document is not meant for the public to digest.
No, it's really more about how you build your case and what sort of story archetype you have in your head. And I think bigger to your question is, in business, how do you connect with your audience? And I strongly encourage people to actually sit down and develop their top 3 personal stories. Like, what is a great story that you can tell in 2 minutes? And I do mean 2 minutes, because, people's attention is short, getting shorter all the time. So, and I've done this exercise with people, and they're fascinated because they realize they've got lots of good stories, but what's a story that's actually going to hook their audience, possibly move them with some empathy, move them with something that's going to be connective. Maybe there's something that we can all identify with in the story, and I'm sure as someone in law enforcement, you've got a few. Do you have your like back pocket super story?
Yes, I do. Yeah. I've got a couple of them, but yeah. But I don't talk about them.
No. I was about to say, is there a chance you'd tell us one in under 2 minutes?
Yeah, well, I guess I was at Australia Post at the big dispatch centre, and a package came in, and I was on my own, and my boss was away at lunch, and I opened the package. Well, I got it opened by Australia Post, but I went through the package and everything and found some drugs in it, and I was like, oh my God, what do I do now? So I did the test and everything, and then rang up the AFP, and they came around, and anyway, happy ending. They delivered the letter on and caught the person and prosecuted them, and that was all because I found this letter and was suspicious of it.
Wow. Was it drugs in an actual letter or a package?
It was in a small package, like an envelope, but I would have called it a package. Yeah, it was like, an A5, a bit bigger.
Oh, interesting. Were the drugs of any interest?
Oh, there was only a small quantity. It's only about 3 grams or something. It wasn't a lot, but it's, back in the 1980s, 90s, it was a big deal.
Oh, for sure. What kind of drugs were they?
It was cocaine.
Oh, good times. Hello, 80s.
Yes.
That's a fun story. Thank you so much for sharing, Rose.
It's okay, but that's one of my stories from back in the day. So, but how would I again, if I was trying to sell something, a service perhaps, how would I turn what I've just said into something engaging for prospective buyers?
Well, for instance, this is a story that highlights the fact that you're curious, you're motivated, you're determined, and you are always on it. So you had your wits about you. You noticed something suspicious. You took action. You were curious. You followed the correct protocols. You identified the substance and alerted correct authorities. And, really beautiful arc, actually. I mean, I think you'd get hired from this story. It's a great get me the job interview story.
Thought about using my past stories to sell, write copy. But yeah, thank you for. I'm glad you came on now, because now it's given me food for thought.
I'm so glad. Well, so I wrote a book called The Big Power
I was about to ask you about your
I was about to say, and in the book, I mean, one of the things I did was people don't have a lot of time. And so I really made the book snackable. And every chapter has a section called Let Me Tell You a Story. And I really use the stories to illustrate everything from being open to random connections and what that can lead to how do you actually manifest something you want from the universe. And there's it's actually based in Sydney. This gentleman by the name of Mitch that I interviewed a couple of years ago, he literally was at gay pride dancing on a bus, like having the best time. I think it was like 11 o'clock at night, and he started having a chat with the guy next to him, and they were just having a laugh. And the guy said, "So what do you want out of life?" Because the bloke was 23, very young, right? He was just finishing up uni. And the guy says, "What do you want out of life?" And he goes, "I want to move to New York." And he's like dancing away, and he thought nothing of it. And the guy turns around and says, "I live in New York. You can crash on my couch." And the guy's like, "No way." Sure enough, 3 months later, Mitch wraps up uni, gets his stuff together, moves to New York, still lives here. And I met him at a barbecue.
Are you kidding me? That's amazing.
I was like, oh, that story's going in the book. Because, I mean, people don't believe that stuff happens. And so they don't even step into those moments. But if you don't ask the universe and you don't put it out there, how's anyone going to hear you? Like, it's pretty logical, actually.
That's very true. Very true. Yes. Yeah. My goal is to get into the top 100 podcasts in Australia by the end of this year. So I'm working hard towards that, and I'm creeping up there. I was told the other day that because of the number of episodes and downloads that I've got, that I'm in the top 1 or 2% of global podcasts. So I thought, oh, hey, cool.
That's exciting. Rose, do you have a coach? Are you working with a coach?
No.
Okay. Just curious. I mean, I think you should use your podcast to ask for what you need from the universe, all sorts of support. And I'm not entirely sure how you become top 10 podcaster, but I'm sure you do.
Oh, yes, I do. So, Jen, have you written any other books other than the one that you just alluded to? Can we have a look at the cover?
Yeah, sure.
Can we get people to buy it?
It's a very fun read. Every chapter, oh, look, there's a Let Me Tell You a Story. Every chapter for the first part has a what's the point? Because, we're busy and maybe you were half paying attention. So I sum the whole chapter up in a couple of sentences just to keep you on track. And it's everything from why we don't connect. Chapter 2 is called I Don't Need More Friends and Other Lies We Tell Ourselves, and it's everything from why we don't push ourselves. Say, the office gang has invited us around to the pub, why don't we go? Why don't we want to go? What's limiting in our beliefs that we might be able to shift with just a little bit more perspective? And then, further on is, how do you get out of, conversations gracefully? I find that one personally very challenging. Like,
Yes.
I can start a million conversations, but leaving gracefully. And that section's actually written by a Hollywood producer. I never met her, but I got her to answer the questions through her publicist. So that was very cool.
Yeah, that would that's always a difficult one, isn't it? When you in with, and the person that you're talking with is not your cup of tea, basically. And
Yeah.
you've got to try and extricate yourself from that conversation without appearing rude. And you can't just say, oh, I'm just going to go and get a drink, or I'm just going to go and do something, without the other person thinking, oh God, what have I done wrong?
Yeah. And she actually suggests that you reference something in the conversation in a positive light that they said. Speaking of this, I thought that was a really great idea. I'm just going to go top up my ice. But we'll connect. You want to walk off, or, oh, someone's leaving. Really loved that thing that you were just saying about that movie. I'm really going to have to check that out, but I'm going to go say goodbye to Rachel, like one of those kinds of things. And you just sort of meander, but I like the idea of nodding on the positive.
Yes,
and you brought up something that's interesting in terms of dealing with challenging people, which is an interesting thing, because so I do corporate trainings where I really help companies support retention. Basically, I'm a retention expert. People are like, you're a connection expert. I'm like, yeah, but what does connection lead to? It leads to retention. People don't want to quit when they, have friends. There's a hugely important statistic that I love, that 62% of people will turn down a higher paying job if they have over 5 to 7 friends at the company.
Not only that, though, if they feel connection with management and they feel like they're valued, their opinions valued, then why would they want to leave?
Yeah. Oh no, it's huge to feel seen. I think is massively important. But I think the other thing that I really encourage people to do in terms of office training, especially now that we're basically Zoom, and more Zoom or Teams, whatever your company's on, how do you handle challenging people in meetings? And having company protocols is really powerful. And so I actually teach, how do you handle the fact that the meeting's running long? How do you handle the fact that the client suddenly has less time, or that they're distracted and they're not paying attention? And this is a presentation that teams worked on for 3 weeks. What do you do to bring it back? And I think having your team and your company all aligned with that kind of sort of troublesome moment is super powerful, because then everyone feels confident with how they're behaving, how they're showing up. And Zoom's very public, right? Everyone's there. And yet you're all by yourself, potentially at home or wherever you're running that meeting from. So it's not like you can just sort of look across the room when the client's looking the other way, Yeah. And be like, what do I do now? They're not paying attention. So I think a lot of this is really powerful in terms of how do you engage? And I think engagement is the crux of being a good storyteller. And to your point, it helps people feel seen,
It does. So I guess using and getting back to the topic, really, to use a story to sell a presentation, to sell more, to upsell something, connect with the audience. If you're giving a talk, it sounds like a silly question, but how can we be more engaging to be able to use storytelling to do all of those things?
No, I think it's not a silly question at all. I think it's a great question, Rose. So part of being a good storyteller is presence. How do you stand? How do you use your voice? How do you use silence and space in your delivery? There's a little bit of showmanship required in a good story, which is why, the classic bar scene, in every pub is one guy who's always got all the yarns, and he tells a great story, and all the people, typically blokes, are standing around just in awe of Bob as Bob tells, that story. And he's probably told it 6 times before, but he tells it with such passion, such finesse, that everyone just laughs and marvels in all the right points. So being able to understand your energy, how you're standing, literally your presence. And when you look at TED Talks And you look at masterful storytellers, like think Steve Jobs. When Steve came out on the stage, he didn't necessarily do a lot, but what he did do built curiosity, it built interest, it held and captivated attention, right? And doing that in that moment for yourself, your product, your company, super powerful. And I think a lot of people struggle with holding that space. And yet, at the end of the day, who doesn't want to listen to someone who's like really going to be bringing you in and telling you something interesting, you know? And that's why good salespeople are just interesting humans.
Yeah, there was I watched a couple of TED Talks, they're short ones, last night, and there was one lady, her topic was, I can't even remember because she was so hands, like her hands were just, you know, I couldn't stop watching her hands, but so I didn't pay any attention to what she was saying really. But there was another guy who was just asking questions. Are you human? And he was just asking, you are human if you do this, or have you ever done something else, and whatever. And I don't know, there's about 50 questions, but it was really interesting. He just used the same monotone voice. He didn't change pitch or anything, but it was an engaging conversation because the questions were good, and it was audience interaction because you had to put your hand up. And, you know, and I was watching him and I was tempted to put my hand up a couple of times. And I thought, don't be silly, he can't see you.
That's amazing, though. The fact that he got you to engage despite the fact that he was monotone, he must have been doing something right.
Yeah, it was really good. I thought it was good. But yeah, you get those ones, people who speak with their hands much too much. And I think it takes away from the delivery of the story.
I think it can. And I think that might also be, you know, a personal thing where that's just something that grabs you in a wrong way. Whereas, you know, I think for someone who grew up with someone who talks with their hands all the time, they might just be like, oh, she's really animated. That's amazing.
Yes.
It might be a personal thing. But I mean, at the end of the day, like, so I work with the fifth largest television provider in the US, for example, and I run this training. And I do so because they realize that everyone from project managers to account directors needs to step into their presentation skills, right? And how do you do that? You see every presentation as an opportunity for audience connection. And the foundation of audience connection, as we've been saying, is a story, right? And how do you reel them in? And so you want your employees to realize the power of being human. So I can see why he got people to raise their hands, right? You know, because you felt very human and engaged with. And that is the most powerful thing, because then you've enrolled them. And when we enroll people into our narrative and our vision, baby, the sales follow.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, you've got to get that connection. You've got to get that know, like, trust thing going on. And the best way to do that is through storytelling. I know I've got it's not a club, it's I don't know, can't think, but it's called Speakers Tribe and Speakers Institute. And they're all for storytelling. Sam Cawthorn is all about telling stories, and you've got to tell a story to engage your audience. And yeah, I know you've got to have a beginning, a middle and an end. It's really great, but you know, when it comes down to writing it, I think, yeah, it's all in my head and I'm trying to get it down. And for me though, it's got to be perfect, and that's, I think, my undoing.
Yeah, but I think actually the best stories in the world are the ones that are not perfect at all. And I think I think the best stories start with disaster. You know, like one of my best, it's like the best worst travel story ever is I was in Italy and I was in Bologna and I had this beautiful lunch, and I was like, well, there's this type of meat that I'd heard, I'm blanking on the name, but there's this type of meat, and I was like, oh, we should definitely go try this, and it's got a fancy name. And I didn't realize that my watch had actually stopped working. We had a flight in a couple hours. So we went and we tried this fancy meat, which turned out to be bologna. Swear to God.
Really?
Bologna is from, mortadella. So mortadella is the fancy name for fancy bologna. And I was like, oh gosh. And while we were eating the bologna, I ran into this woman who I guessed correctly that her name was Jennifer. What are the odds? And Jennifer was like, you have to go and have this gelato. By then, my partner was like, I think we need to go. And I was like, oh, we've got time. We'll jump a bus. It'll be fine. It was not fine. We got to the airport. Our flight was leaving in 10 minutes. So they'd already boarded. It was a tiny airport. They'd already removed our bags. And they were like, sorry, we can't let you on. I'm like, but the plane's still here. And they're like, yep, too bad. And we proceeded to ask every car rental place. And I called every bus company, every train company to figure out how we could get to Lyon, France by the next day at 1:00. And it was 4:00 the day before. And it's far. I mean, it's far. So we actually got lucky. One car needed to go back to France. And so we drove through the Alps, through the night, through tunnel after tunnel, because it turns out the Europeans just bored tunnels through Alps. And I got to tell you, they're actually quite weird to drive through, because after about 5 minutes of like tunnels with weird boundings and light, you're like, am I even conscious? I felt like it was like alternate universe. And at 2 a.m, we realized we were going to make the flight. But the whole way there, every time I paid a toll, my partner just laughed and said, ooh, another 50 pounds, so 50 euros. He's like, ooh, another 50 euro mistake. How was that bologna?
Love it.
Terrible. But it was a disaster, but it's a great story.
It is a good story. Yeah, I love it. It's funny. I'm laughing. I don't know why we laugh at other people's misfortunes, but it was hilarious.
Because you realize, I mean, I think we see ourselves in the foibles of others, right? And we feel more human. I guess.
Yeah. Jen, where can people find you if they want to work with you or find out more about what you do?
I'm at jennash.com, JENNASH.com. Reach out, submit a form, say hi, and they can also connect on Instagram at Real Jen Nash. And that's the Instagram handle, Real Jen Nash. And, if they are looking for a coach to take things up to the next level, I am really, really excited to work with women leaders specifically, who are basically successful, but they want to do less so they can feel more. Because sometimes we do so much and it takes away from our experience of life. So
it does. Yes.
So I work very hard to shift that for my clients.
Yeah, my previous guest this afternoon is on that mission as well. So yeah, I think we as women we tend to do everything and don't leave anything for ourselves.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well said. Well, thank you, Rose. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you. Now, have you got any last words of wisdom that you would like to share with our audience today?
Yes. Next time you're hesitating about speaking to a stranger, just jump in. There's nothing more beautiful than a hi, how are you? My name is, and how's your day going? None of these things will bite you, and you never know where connecting with a stranger might lead you. So
absolutely. Might be like Mitch.
Might be like Mitch. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So
I wish our
audience
connection. Oh, thank you.
All right.
Likewise.
Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Talking with the Experts, hosted by Rose Davidson. Make sure you have a look at our back catalogue over at talkingwiththeexperts.com. And be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss out on any episode. We look forward to your company next time. Talking with the Experts.